And welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We're talking this hour with Laura Baxter, all about dealing with divas and other difficult personalities, a mindful approach to improving relationships in your business or organization. By the way, Laura, has the book come out yet, or is it about to come out? When's it coming out?
It's about to come out actually in 2 weeks it'll be out. So,
okay.
For those listening to this who have access to your website, there'll be a link as to where to get it. And I've got several different things that we can talk about at the end that I would like to offer for those
wonderful.
Get the book. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now let's talk about a common situation, something that, I get coaching clients come to me sometimes about, they're working in a company, they kind of like their job, but they have this one, and it could be a boss, it could be a coworker, it could be a subordinate that just makes their life miserable. And they just, if it wasn't for this one person, they would love going into work every day, but this one person just makes their life so unbearable, they can't even stand going into the office. So how do we deal with this person in a way that isn't going to drain us and, helps to manage them so that they don't infect all the other people working around them with their, obstinance?
That's a great question, and that situation is not uncommon.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different studies out about engagement at work, active engagement, disengagement, and active disengagement. And one of the main causes, and it's of active disengagement, in other words, employees that are so unhappy in their situation that they actually actively speak against the company itself, is interpersonal relationships. That exactly the situation that you just described, that there just is someone in the office or on the team that makes you feel absolutely terrible for whatever reason. And it can also, the client, for example, the description you just gave the client, it can be that when they walk in the door of the building, they start to feel sick. They have stress. They
feel the energy as soon as they walk through the door.
And that's sad, because that can be avoided. That really can be avoided. For those listening sort of on the go, my book is, the book is written according to the acronym DIVA, of course. So that makes it a little easier. I'll give you some tips according to the DIVA plan itself.
Okay.
The very first thing to know is a diva, though, is not necessarily a stereotypical larger-than-life person that comes into the room and takes over. Right. That's one form of a diva.
Right.
But people who have a larger-than-life personality, very dynamic personality, they actually tend to find other people with a very dynamic personality attractive. It's sort of energy building on energy, and that's great. For them, the people that are more difficult are more the introverted people, someone who's very introverted, who is more of a planner and needs to have more information before they can make a decision, and they hesitate. That type of personality is more what the dynamic person would find difficult, or possibly even call a diva, because they believe this other person is trying to control the situation. So the very first step in beginning to cope with a situation, if you happen to have a diva, in quotes, a diva in your life, someone you find difficult, is to define the situation. So actually analyze when you are with this diva, this person or these persons. Because, for example, I was working in a rather large company here in Nuremberg, where one of the clients I was working with, we were working on a presentation that he had to give for his employees, and then we went into this coffee room, and all of a sudden he got very tense. And we just took a break and went into the coffee room, and I said, what's wrong? And he started telling the story of an employee of his who he found just very difficult. And every time he went into this coffee room, he sort of remembered that situation. And when I asked a bit more about the situation, when exactly, does he encounter this person? He said, well, actually, she's no longer with the company.
Oh, okay.
And so often we relive scenes in our heads of situations that no longer exist.
Right, right.
And one, I gave a seminar for the leadership teams of a rather large city in Hessen here in Germany, and we did this exercise, exactly what I'm talking about now, about defining the situation. So literally writing down when you encounter this difficult person. Do you encounter this person through emails? Do you encounter this, so basically virtually?
Right.
Do you encounter this person through virtual conversations or telephone conferences, or actually do you come in personal contact with this person? And if so, where and when? How often? And then the next step is to recognize actually the times, and literally to imagine the time where you're encountering that diva as being a field that you step into and step out of.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand that when you step out of it, you really do not have to think about that person or that situation again. And it was interesting when I gave this seminar in this rather large city here with this team. All of a sudden, one of the participants just said, "Wait a minute," and I said, "What?" And she said, "I actually don't have any contact with this person at all." I said, "What do you mean you don't have any contact with this person?" I said, "Actually, the only contact I have is through other people telling me about this person."
Ah.
And she just kind of looked at it, and she was in charge of the social services section of the city, and so she had a lot of stress.
Right.
But you realized in that moment that some of this stress was coming from something that had nothing to do with her.
Right. So it was nothing that was direct in her actual experience, but it was all secondhand, people talking about how awful this other person was.
Exactly. And she, got caught up into that because she wanted to be, sympathetic or empathetic with her other employees, or for whatever reason, maybe the stories were interesting, or maybe she had one brief encounter, but she literally looked at the paper where she had written everything down, and she said, "I don't have contact with this person." and then at that moment, she literally could let go.
Yeah.
That's more of an exception than the rule. Usually we do have more contact than that. But just defining the situation gives us more control over when and where and how we have to actually encounter or think about this person or even deal with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then second, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, it's very good to kind of really define things to see what is the reality, because oftentimes there's this image in our head of what the situation is like, and then there's the actual truth of the situation, the sort of objective, what are the actual facts. So it's
exactly.
So being clear on those two things. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and once you've defined the situation, part of defining the situation is also defining your own goals, both what we were talking about a minute ago, your main goal and also your hidden agendas. And then the second step is creating a strong inner strength. So just coming back to the diva, you've got defining the situation and now an inner strength. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. Obviously, meditation is one. It's very important to be able to find your own center, to be able to find a deep breath. This is also where the mindfulness comes in. One of my chapters, it's my favorite chapter in the book, is called The Four Most Powerful Mental States.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Like that.
And the four most I'm sorry, what?
I said we like that.
Oh, we like that. And it's so much. I mean, Sam, so much of this is what you talk about with the universe. It really is. It just really is. It's the four most powerful mental states are the state of love,
right,
the state of gratitude,
mm-hmm.
the state of forgiveness,
mm-hmm.
and the state of play.
Ah, play. I like play.
Yeah. And what I encourage my clients to do is is take a moment, especially, I think probably the two easiest of those are the state of gratitude and the state of play.
Yeah.
The state of forgiveness, forgiveness itself it's a process. It's not an event.
Right.
But it begins with the decision to forgive. And that's one of the most, when you're dealing with difficult people or someone you find to be very difficult or someone you think has wronged you. It's the process and the state of forgiveness is very, very important.
Right.
It's just not quite as simple as perhaps the state of gratitude or the state of play. I say that as if gratitude and play were simple. But the state of with the state of gratitude, what you can do, and that's why I say it's a little more simple than forgiveness, is just start a journal and write down what you're grateful for.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm real big on that. I tell all my clients to start their day with at least 5 things that they're grateful for in their life and write them down.
It is so important. There've been a lot of studies about what people who describe themselves as being successful, whatever that means, if it means rich or if it means, having a successful career in traveling or whatever, people who define themselves as successful and they consider their life a success and they are happy with their lives as it is, the most common emotion that they feel very consciously is gratitude.
Yes.
And so bringing gratitude into your life is so very important.
Yeah.
And bringing play into your life is kind of a fun, that's a very fun thing. Basically, I saw, if you can kind of picture this in your head, several years ago, I saw some pictures by a German photographer. His name's Norbert Rosing, and he's one of the most well-known, influential photographers of our time, one of the top 40 influential photographers of our time. And he did a series of pictures on polar bears. In general, he does a lot of polar bears. But he did one particular set of pictures that he took at the Hudson River in Canada.
Uh-huh.
And they were at a kennel on the Hudson River in Canada, and a polar bear came towards them. And it was very clear that this polar bear was hunting, that this polar bear was definitely going to attack one of these dogs. And there were about 40 or 50 dogs chained onto a fence. Oh. And what ended up happening at that moment is that one of the dogs, instead of going into sort of fight or flight position or behavior, the dog went into a behavior or physical state of play. The dog wanted to play with the bear. Oh, interesting. And what ended up happening at that moment is that basically the bear recognized this play posture, this desire to play, and the bear changed his posture and began playing with the dogs. And he played with them for over an hour. Wow. Okay, great story. Okay, believe it or not, it's time for us to take our last commercial break of the show. See, time flies when you're having fun. So when we come back, let's just talk about some highlights of the book, some things that you want to make sure that our audience can take away with them, some little tips, and we'll talk all about where they can get the book and your special announcement for our audience. So everybody, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, and we'll be right back.